I mean, how you be a black church and not celebrate Dr. King's legacy?
Y'all, welcome to the 2024 edition of the Generational Handoff. I am Curtis Dean, the next gen pastor right here at Springfield Baptist Church.
I'm Eric Lee. I'm just the senior servant of the Springfield Baptist Church, and we're glad to be back.
Yeah.
Our first podcast of a brand new year, 2024.
Y'all, we've been loving all of the interactions, but this year is going to get even crazier. I promise you. I promise you that.
Let's deal with this because my middle son, Warwick, who is starting to take his faith walk to another level. One of the things that he said to my wife was, you know, well, Christianity is the white man's religion. Wow. You know. Well, I mean, but that's the perception. Yeah. And so I can understand why he would make that. But to the extent that it is perceived to be the white man's religion, we should have a conversation about that. Because it's not. Right. It was never intended. As a matter of fact,
you have Augustine and Tertullian. These guys were
whiteness is a construct.
Right.
Blackness is a construct. Right. Biblical days didn't have those constructs. Right. They would have never said this is the rightful religion of the white man. Right. We have just been taught with these colonial lenses. Mm-hmm. When we close our eyes, we see 12 white men walking with a white Jesus. Yeah. That is a cultural construct. Right. That is not a geographical or regional reality, because the people, they were Afro-Asiatic people.
Right, right.
You know, they weren't European.
Yeah.
They're definitely more African than they are European.
Yeah. So do we talk about the systemic issue of it all too? Because, you know, me and you were talking about this with my last class, to where we did a study on the slave Bible. And what we found was, even now, there's a lot of preachers who unconsciously still teach from the same lenses of the slave Bible. So there's certain stuff that black preachers won't touch, because systemically it wasn't in the slave Bible. So now they pigeonhole themselves to teach a certain thing. So that's where we get people teaching B clauses of a scripture or A clauses of a scripture without understanding the full context of the scripture.
Yeah.
It can get real deep, because
well, I mean, have
so
we started?
Much. Oh, just all right, we can
I mean, I really had to delve into that. I had to deal with that as I was answering my call to the ministry, as I was learning to define myself by my faith before anything else. I consider myself a Christian before I consider myself a black man. Mm-hmm.
And you have some
my Christian identity is big, is
right,
but the two are never in. The two are not in. They don't have to be in conflict.
Right,
with
they don't have
each
to
other.
compete.
But because of our historical lack of knowledge,
the assumption is, if you say that, then you're, to some people, denying your blackness.
And I can appreciate that if you think I'm for people who would say that by listening to this little 30-second sound clip. Mm-hmm. I pastor a 145-year-old church. Mm-hmm. I know that the people who founded this church were the formerly enslaved. Mm-hmm. And I celebrate and I walk in their sacrifice every day. Mm. And we honor it. Because one of the things that we did when we bought this building and we had to update our sign was we had to say, we need to make sure people know that we remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put established 1879 up there.
Got you.
It's in our logo, established 1879,
Mm-hmm.
because we embrace our history just like the children of Israel embraced theirs.
So what is that like walking on those or standing on those shoulders though? Because there's a demographic that can't fathom in 145-year-old church. You got some churches that are only 5 years old, 4 years old, 12 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is that like to have that baton passed, if you will? Is there a different pressure? I think we done started a little bit. Yeah.
I think you cannot preach or teach the gospel outside of context. When I did my doctorate is a doctor of ministry, and it's a doctor of ministry on redemptive leadership in the African American context. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the culture of the African American church is central to how I understand God,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to how the church's responsibility in a world of impoverished people, in a world of oppressed people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theology in my context that's specific to the experience that we have as a people.
Yes, sir.
And Immanuel Kant says you can't know anything outside of what your experience is. I understand that we are the God of not only Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're the God of Sojourner Truth. We're the God of Martin Luther King, Fannie Lou Hamer, who all have dedicated their lives, Medgar Evers, to pulling people out from the bottom of the American experiment.
So is that question? So is that, for a lack of better terms, I don't want to say that churches are failing, but do you think that there's an injustice to the Christian body when a black church doesn't acknowledge their history? Whether it is a pastor who doesn't take the time to learn anything about the African struggle, is that an injustice to the church?
There's an African American man who's running for governor as a Republican candidate in North Carolina, who it was exposed on King Day that he had some very derogatory things to say about Dr. King as a pastor, about Dr. King as a religious leader. And I can't help but think that he was trying to score points in a Republican Party that uplifts white supremacy, that accommodates white supremacy. And sometimes we will be willing to beat down our own leaders to be elevated among people who would never see us as their equal. And so did he say that out of because of the political possibilities, or did he say that out of a place of ignorance where he, never saw eyes on the prize or never appreciated that Dr. King and Dr. King's father were extremely thoughtful theological leaders in their congregations, and that the civil rights movement was an extension. As a matter of fact, he called the civil rights movement communist.
Wow.
And there are people who will throw flames to get clicks.
Yeah.
But there is a level of ignorance that we have in this nation about our own nation's history and about our own. we're still having so many, we're still filling in the blanks. That's why our we're reading a book called Master Slave, Husband, Wife.
Right.
And it's about a slave couple that escaped from slavery in Macon, Georgia in the 1840s.
Down the street.
And not only that, I want you to go read the book, but they escaped. They became a part of the abolitionist movement. They went all over Europe. They went all over Canada and the free U.S., and they still had, people who were trying to recatch them.
Wow, the whole time.
The whole time, the Fugitive Slave Act allowed, people to go and catch former slave or escaped slaves and bring them back. So they always lived in fear. But when the Civil War was over, they come back to the South and they bought a plantation. Who knew that we had ancestors like that?
Right.
And, it's such an inspirational story. And I get embarrassed sometimes about how little we know because we have so few documents to read. We have such, limited inheritance, except oral tradition from one generation to another. And I want to uncover a lot of that. I want people to uncover that. And I think it gives context to why we are the least wealthy people in the country. It gives context to why on all these major demographics, you continue to see Black people at the bottom of wealth, health, and education. There's so many gaps. And there are historical reasons for these gaps. If you're not able to buy property until the 1900s, then, you're going to be behind people who've owned property since the 1700s.
Yeah.
And so we have been taught to think so little of ourselves. And I, my heart breaks for people who feel like they're not pretty unless they're looking like a European woman. My heart breaks for people who don't feel like they're smart unless they go to white schools. Because at the core of all of that is a lack of an appreciation for how God delivered us.
Yes, sir.
And is still delivering us.
So something that you said earlier, we just kind of started talking, so we here now. But you said something that I found really profound about how your theology is also shaped through the lens of what we've been through.
Yeah.
Question for you, as somebody who has pastored 25 years, where did you see the disconnect start to happen, or was it something before you? And I ask it like this. Did you ever hear about preachers not wanting to touch our history when you first started pastoring, or is this something fairly new?
Oh, I think there's a lot of the only book I need to read is the Bible.
Yeah. So was that something with
there's
you?
a lot of not
with
yeah.
you, but I'm saying, is that something that you saw as a pastor?
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay.
That because let me just one of the things that we tackle, one of the reasons why I started a book club is because of adult illiteracy.
Okay.
And the notion that people can go a lifetime without reading a book is a stark reality.
Yes.
I think we suffer as a nation, not just as Black people, but as a nation of people in general, because we're just not readers. That's across the board. And there's so much we can glean. We can read a book and go all over this world.
Yes.
You can become an amazing person. You can become your worldview can really expand just by having a functional library card. And I wish I appreciated that more 40 years ago than I do now. But I thank God that, in the words of Bob Marley, and there is a Bob Marley biopic coming out next week, 2,000 years of history could not be wiped so easily. Our history is out there. It's available to be studied, to be pursued. I even Reverend Joe Sims is the pastor, is the founding pastor of the Springfield Baptist Church. And I've been searching for census records.
Okay.
We do the census every 10 years, and I've been searching the 1870 census to see if I can find the man who was the predecessor to my pastorate, who, had it not been for him, there'd be no Springfield.
Right.
There'd be no Pastor Lee at Springfield Baptist Church. And so his contribution matters. And if we don't have a desire, if we don't have any reverence for what came before us, it's going to be hard to be an effective church. Yes, especially even for churches that are 3 years old and 4 years old. If those churches are going to survive the next generation, there's going to have to be an appreciation for where we've come from. I do have a problem with pastors and or churches or church leaders who feel like we don't need to consider the dark pages of history. I have a problem with that, because if you can't tell your story, if you can't tell the dirt part of it, you can't talk about the resilience. You can't talk about how I got over.
Right.
You can't sing you can't believe in we shall overcome if you never talk about what you overcame.
So I do got a question. It's a preacher question.
Okay.
And it's a broad question, but I just want you to follow me to see if we can at least give our opinions on this. Do you think that the reason why historical context is being lost in the church is because it may be pastors that are only reading the Bible to preach and not to study, just to be able to consume and have the word in them? I know it's a broad question, but I hope I ask it in a way that could be understood. Because before you answer the question, I feel like a lot of the times, because there's such a, let me just get a viral message moment, or just let me get that moment to where I can try to do something new, there's no study habits, which translates into a people that feel the need not to study anything. I know that was a lot, but do you feel that there is a connection?
There's a you have to fight in our church, in our Christian context. I think you have to fight an anti-intellectualism that, and I saw it when I came out of college, that the church wants me to go to college, but then when I come back with a new idea that they've never read, it kind of gets stifled. But we have to appreciate context, and when I always talk about, you need to think about what you believe in.
Yes, sir.
You need to be reflective about what you believe and why you believe it. It fortifies your faith. It doesn't tear it down. It makes it stronger. the church was founded in Acts chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe when you go and read the history of Springfield Baptist Church online,
Mm-hmm.
I start our church history with Acts chapter 2
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we are an extension
Of that, yes, sir.
of Acts chapter 2.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't think a lot of people get that.
No.
That when they think about the founding, when they think about the church, they think about their church.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't think about it as one church.
Right.
We are a branch of a larger movement.
Mm-hmm.
And every Pentecost, we celebrate that we are an extension of what happened in Acts chapter 2. I think Acts chapter 2 is foundational for what all churches ought to be doing in the world. And if you don't reflect on Acts chapter 2 in the context of what happened on that 50th day after resurrection, 1,990, almost 91 years ago, you'll miss that there's a set of questions that we ought to be asking about what the church should be doing in our time.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the church is a worshiping body. The church is a body of fellowship, a body where Christian education should be central.
Mm-hmm.
Right there in Acts chapter 2, every pillar of the church is there. Stewardship, discipleship, service, Christian education, fellowship and worship. All of that is right there in Acts chapter 2.
Yes, sir.
And then the Bible says something about they gave all they had and they met needs. They had everything in common and they met needs. And so every church ought to do an assessment of what the needs are in your current context.
It's something that you said to me, well, it's been a year now. Something that you said to me at the beginning when we got to talk about just pastoring. And you said, I don't want to say you said struggle, but you deal with how to be effective in your community, not just having great church on Sundays, but how could we have crime in our back door? How can we remedy a lot of issues around? And there are a lot of people that feel as long as they do great church on Sundays, that they're doing what they're supposed to do as it relates to the context of the church. What do you say to that pastor who feels like as long as I got a popping Sunday, I'm good? The doors aren't open. They aren't doing any acts of service. They aren't discipling people. It's just we're going to shout on Sundays. We're going to cry out on Sundays. And then we had the attendance. I'm straight.
Yeah.
What do you say to that pastor that feels like that's essentially successful church nowadays?
Well,
hate to put you on the spot, but
it's so important. The worship. We are a gathering body.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of my colleagues would say it this way: there's a gathering of the church, and then there's a scattering of the church. And we don't stop being the church even when we scatter. Most of us, when we talk about church, we're talking about a building.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about an experience rather than a life of following Christ. We compartmentalize it. And I think we have, instead of seeing Christ saturated into our family life, into our professional life, into our financial life, we like to put him in a box. And, we get judged by how well we do in the box.
Yeah.
Is the church full? There's a statistic somewhere that says that most churches spend most of their budget on making the current church feel comfortable. You know, we spend most of our budgets making people who are already saved feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's I don't just knock the I think we all have some soul searching to do. When you can be a church, come into a worship center, worship, and lock the door and not come back for 7 more days, and nothing result from what happened, we got to ask ourselves, have we become more about buildings and butts and pews,
Entertainment,
or do we have some? They measured in the book of Colossians, in Paul's letter to the church at Colossae, the measure of a successful church was not by its budget, not by its building, not by its viewership, but by changed lives.
transformation. Yes, sir.
And it's going to be hard to transform lives simply by dedicating 2 hours out of a week with 168 hours?
Right.
So yeah, you know, there's the church that gathers, but there's also the church. Who are we after we scatter?
Yes, sir. So as a pastor who's mentoring pastors, mentoring future leaders, how do you I'm using keep, but you Dr. Lee is not one of them people that stop you from doing anything. He'll give you his advice, but you good. But how do you keep ministers like myself from that type of establishment, or how do you instill those values of keeping historical context, building a church that does service and does transform, and keep people like me away from thinking that the only way to measure success in the church is on Sundays? That's a rough question, actually.
That's a really tough question. I mean, I know when we talked about you coming on a year ago, we were talking about, hey, you gotta get out in these schools.
Yes, sir.
You gotta get to ball games. You gotta go see children where they are.
Yes,
You gotta build relationships. And it's the same thing with churches and pastors. I mean, I said, you know, I can't do transformation alone. And so I've committed to being in multicultural fellowships. I've committed to learning things that I don't know. And I've committed to being a resource for people who need to know more about us. We had a seminar last year about race and culture and the church, and the people that we brought in, you know, they said that, you know, the only thing that's going to stop racism is multicultural relationships and friendships. And I think that's true for the generational divide. That younger pastors need to be friends with older pastors. Older pastors need to seek out friendships and relationships. And when we get to the point where we no longer value relationship, and we're almost there, because oh my God, we have just seen so much. We're throwing daggers online.
Yeah.
You know, we're celebrating tension and division. It's clickbait.
Yeah.
We talked about Cat Williams on the first Sunday, and you know,
people was hot at you, Doc.
people were hot at me.
People was they didn't listen to the whole video anyway.
They were hot at me, and they were like, you know, they wanted me to take a side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a waste of energy. And one of the things that I thought was really kind of profound was when Dave Chappelle said about Cat Williams, how you gonna call out Hollywood and only talk about black people?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna call out Hollywood,
you're
talking about the people who are at the bottom of Hollywood.
Right. Call out Hollywood.
You gotta go to the
people that make the decisions.
The boardrooms
Mm-hmm.
and call out Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
But we get excited. Mm-hmm. There's something about us that just loves for us to see each other fight.
Tension, controversy.
Like, I don't want to be out here going back and forth with another pastor online.
Yeah. And
that ain't what I'm called to do.
You're not even seeing as many churches fellowship anymore like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, back in the day, I'm saying back in the day, but back in the day, you had a choir anniversary. It was 9 other churches coming. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You have the Easter Sundays.
Yeah.
You have the afternoon service, another preacher's preaching. You have the other times where everybody's covering stuff all at the same church. It was a dope time, but now you're seeing more competitiveness.
Yeah.
What are they doing over there? We're going to do that now so we can, rather than the fellowship, rather than the camaraderie.
I don't even see, you know, I see people forecasting the fall of pastors, prophesying the fall. There used to be a time we would pray for pastors.
Cover them.
Yes,
sir.
And pray that whatever might be outside of God's will for them,
that they get through it.
Yeah.
And be a resource if they needed you.
But it's almost like we want the credit. Like I saw it coming, so I want the credit as a process. So there's this multimedia frenzy that is so anti-relationship.
Which leads me to a gripe that I have. We're not going to name no names, but I do got to use a quote. Somebody quoted and said that in order to win souls now, the church has to look like the world. And the reason why it upset me so much is because it was so much vanity in that statement of, in order to get people up in here, we got to look like them, without realizing the consequence of a statement like that. So now you have the drama in the church as well as the world in the church. And nobody knows how to remedy the drama of what you said of now we're looking for the fall. We're looking for the problem. We're looking to be able to tell somebody that they was wrong or they was robbing or they was a whoremonger, or whatever the case may be. It does. But how do you...
We got Mike Derrick now.
I know. But it's rough for me to see that because I'm seeing churches be successful seemingly in number, but the souls aren't being transformed. You have a lot of people in your churches, but there's no transformation. There's no want to learn the Bible. There are people that are literally going to church because they want to be entertained that day. Come to my church because we're going to turn up. There's not a lot of people talking about, man, you're going to come here and get a sound word. You're going to learn something new. You're going to come here and be transformed. It's just like, man, come to my church, man, because we go crazy in there.
Yeah. There's I might have talked to you about this when I was doing my dissertation work. There's a document called Move, and it was a survey that measured the efficacy or the efficiency of the evangelical movement. And they were simply, they were fishing. They were asking questions about how effective the church is about converting people from unbeliever to disciple. And essentially this, 100-page document said, our numbers are up. Our quantity is up,
Mm-hmm.
but our quality is weak.
Mm-hmm.
And we are producing people who claim to be Christians,
Mm-hmm.
but the depth of their Christianity is immature, or they said it was a mile wide
Yeah, we
in
did talk
terms
about
of its numbers,
that. Right.
but in less than an inch
Paper
thick
thin.
in terms of its depth.
Mm-hmm.
Thin, cheap grace, just, and so we'll have people who wear the veneer of Christianity.
I like that, the veneer.
But
I like that.
how do we develop them into a deeper walk? How do you go from milk to meat?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's no microwaving Christians.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You got crock pot Christians.
Yeah.
And I don't think I wonder, I don't want to just baptize 200 people and then 2 years later I have no idea
Where they are.
what happened to them. So what kind of systems are in place in the church? What kind of processes, what kind of curriculum is available in the church? Because in the end of Acts chapter 2, they continued daily.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And they listened to the apostles' teaching, and that was daily. And God added to the church daily, which is why it's hard. And I know I'm using some old imagery because it is possible to be effective in ministry online. Mm-hmm. It is possible to be discipling people remotely. So it's not always about the church being locked up, but the church, the world needs the church.
Yes, sir.
The world needs the church to be open.
Yes, sir.
As much
yes, sir.
as the church can be open for those of us who are preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. I go into the world, becoming the world, to go after the world. I know Paul said, to the Romans, I became Roman. To the Jews, I'm Jew. So that I might win some. But Paul was celibate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul had a spiritual standard.
Yeah.
Paul, it's one thing to say that there's no place he wouldn't go to win souls, but there was a line that he would. There was a standard.
There was a standard. Yes, sir.
There are things that he wouldn't do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't help but think he speaks against the temple of Diana. I can't imagine that he'd be willing to participate in an orgy to win souls. Mm-hmm. So where is the line?
Yes, sir.
And where should the line be drawn?
Yes, sir.
I think there definitely needs to be a line.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, boundaries are blessings.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The boundary is not just to restrict you. It's there to bless you.
Yes, sir.
It's there to help you. And not every boundary we should see as a bad thing. The church in Acts chapter 2 did not look like the world.
We're going to call this episode Acts chapter 2.
I'm going to keep coming back to Acts chapter 2 as long as I can talk. It didn't look like the world. The church was supposed to be countercultural.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
An alternative.
Yes, sir.
To what was already out there, right?
Right. Right.
And I think for those of us who are trying to posit something other than that, we got to look at Scripture and appreciate, We need to be relevant,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't need to be retreads.
Don't need to sacrifice for the sake of relevancy. Because the rough part for me to watch is now I'm seeing a lot of people my age who you spoke of microwave Christianity, where that's how they flow. They flow in a certain pocket to where I'm in church. That's enough.
Yeah.
But it's gotta be the popping church. It's gotta have I still gotta feel like the club. If it don't feel like the club, then I can't do this Christian thing. How has it been to watch that happen? To watch now where people are essentially microwaving Christianity to where they're putting it in a box to where, like, if it's not worldly, it's not accurate. Like how was it to just watch that? Because I know you've seen it. So how is it to watch that now and to know that for some people they're literally just saying, "Hey, we club so and so, we club Baptist church. That's what we do over here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you know that there should be a standard.
Man, that's why I don't get a lot of these questions from that crowd. You know, I think the best thing you can do is ask a church or a pastor, what are your core values?
Mm.
And what are your core beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
If they have no answer, if they have no answer to those questions, then that's an institution that's willing to be pulled in whatever direction the culture is trending at the time. Yeah.
What do you?
So let's say I come to your church, and
you preaching for me now. I'm inviting you to come and preach, so you ain't just coming to spectate.
And you got a VIP section.
Okay, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that. What do you say to somebody who you've mentored, who you've invested in? What do you say?
And I would say to you, listen, if these are the VIPs, then who are these? Are you suggesting that if you're not in that VIP section, you're not a very important person? I would just ask you to think it through.
Got you. See,
But let me say this.
Okay.
Because our church has dealt with this. There are reasons why some churches, particularly churches in California, there are reasons why some churches have some private intentional seating for people who are celebrities, for people who are just publicly accomplished, because some people don't know how to be around famous people.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Definitely true.
And it becomes a security issue.
Yeah.
I mean, if Rihanna came to Springfield, we probably need to put her somewhere else. Right? You know?
Yeah.
She just can't have somebody run up on her.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it's not that you want to communicate that certain people are more important than others, but what if Rihanna wants to come to church and not have to sign 100 autographs to go to church? She ought to be able to do that. And so, you know,
I just wonder what a pastoral scolding is like from Dr. Lee. That's why I asked. Because
it'll probably come in the form of a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I wonder we come.
I'm assuming. Yeah.
Be like, hey man, I ain't preaching till you get this together. Well, he just be like,
no, I wouldn't be like that.
Nah, I can't do this, man. What is you doing? What is you doing? But I do wonder what it is like for pastors to hear about their sons or people that they know they've invested time in what is it like when they hear, hey man, one of your youngins over here going insane, like or not
Yeah.
even just insane, but
Yeah.
you may send somebody off and you know what you instilled in them, and then you hear like they did what? Like what does that feel like as a senior pastor, knowing, man, you came from this house. I know what I did. Why are you like that? Like what does that feel like as a pastor to see that? Have you experienced that, or is it?
Oh my God, man.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
so what is that? What is that feeling like to know when you know? Like
Yeah.
even like these conversations right here, I learned a lot from these conversations. This is how we.
My heart breaks
Mm.
for
Are you
people who
embarrassed too?
think.
Are you embarrassed?
No.
No. Okay. Okay.
No,
Okay.
man. No, man.
Okay.
You know, my biological kids don't embarrass me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My spiritual family doesn't. But my heart breaks in ministry for people, and I've seen it every year of my pastorate, where people start ministries, set up churches,
Mm.
rent facilities. They got a setup of a church,
Mm.
and it just doesn't happen the way they expect it to.
Mm.
My heart breaks for people who feel like they've done their part, but they didn't get the response. It didn't grow the way they thought it was going to grow. It didn't pop the way they thought it was going to pop. And I can imagine those are some lonely places to be, and some lonely rooms to be in. And there's so much more to being the church
Mm-hmm.
than drawing a crowd. But at the same time, you got to learn, you got to be able to draw people
Mm-hmm.
to have a church. And I get concerned about the church of the future, but people have been forecasting the fall of the Christian church for 2,000 years.
Since the beginning.
And God always finds a witness. And I'm interested in doing my part to make sure that there's a handoff to the future witnesses of the Christian faith.
Gotcha.
And so there has to be, it can't just be berating. It has to be a relationship, mentoring, conversations, agreeing to disagree. I got a good friend who mentors me. And one of the things he told me was that you can tell me anything, and I'm still going to love you. And I'm still going to respect you. And I'm not going to hurt you. And I love that, because we need that. And one of the most alienating professions in the world, according to the American Medical Association, is pastoring.
Yeah.
It's pastoring. They said it's the top.
So that, because I feel like we done had a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. We just kind of freestyle, y'all. We thought we had a theme.
But that's
I think we started off talking about Martin Luther King. What about people who don't celebrate Juneteenth or don't acknowledge, African American history?
Yes.
Who don't acknowledge?
Yes.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we think of African American History Month as just the Black Month.
But our culture overall has a problem with that. Even when it comes to our musical pioneers, as soon as it's not trendy no more, that's old news. Why are we still talking about that? As soon as the latest clothing trend goes away, we're done.
Diversity used to be a trend,
and
now people are saying, "Okay, we're done with diversity.
we're
We're moving on to something else."
Yeah.
When it comes to, because one of the things that I'm giving more attention to is Hispanic Heritage Month,
Yeah.
Indigenous Peoples Month,
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous Americans Month in November. You know, I'm starting to see that we can be diverse in that way
Mm-hmm.
by making sure that other people's experience matters.
Yes, sir.
And far too often we go to school, we read about everybody else's experience, and you go to a history class and they teach you about slavery, and then they jump 100 years
Yeah. And now they're
and
trying
teach
to
you
get
about
rid of
Dr.
that.
King.
Now they're trying to get
And
rid
what
of that.
little they taught us, slavery, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, then they jump 100 years. And I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
From 1863 to 1963.
Ain't got nothing.
They don't want to talk about black codes and redlining, and don't want to teach us about Jim Crow. And go and see Origin. Origin, our staff is on its way to see Origin.
Advert.
It's a book on, the book is called Cast by Isabella Wilkerson. Amazing storyteller. She explains why black people are at the bottom economically, socially, politically. And one of the things I think that comes out in that book is that in the 1890s, this is 30 years after slavery, 90% of the African American community were either farmers, sharecroppers, or domestic help.
Wow. 90%.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're wondering why we haven't generated the wealth, you're talking about 30 years after slavery.
90%.
And opportunities are that 90% of us, we're either picking somebody else's cotton or we're washing their laundry. So,
and that's why these conversations and keeping our history vibrant in the church is so important.
And not only that, Curtis, we were worth $4 billion in 1860.
Wow.
3 million slaves were worth $4 billion.
And this is billion.
We have always been, we have always generated wealth for people outside of our community. Even to this day, we're generating wealth for people outside of our community, but we're not regenerating wealth within our community.
Yes, sir.
And that's part of the church's responsibility too.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And if you don't know about that, as the number one institution in among African American people, the black church is.
Yes, sir.
If you don't know that, then you're not doing anything to help change that. If you don't know that the African American family was expected to have a net worth of 0 by 2053, if you don't acknowledge that, then you're not going to do anything over the next 30 years to make sure that that prophecy doesn't come to pass.
Yes, sir.
It's dangerous not to know your context.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Lee, we've been going. For 2024, what are you believing God for?
Whew. I'm believing God for changed lives, transformed lives. I'm believing God for a more cohesive church. I'm believing God for an outbreak of worship, mature, time-tested worship. I'm believing God for all 6 of our core values to be exalted and utilized to give God glory. I'm believing God for 30 years of marriage.
Wow. All right.
And the fruit of that marriage is I'm believing God for graduations for our children. We've got a son getting married to an amazing woman. And we got to have a podcast just about that, because what a story they have.
So you got to bring all of them up, get everybody mic'd up, And y'all
Okay.
got to have that conversation. I think that'd be a good conversation. Just put them all around the couches and all that.
Mm.
And there should be a conversation about that, because I also do feel like we have had a lot of conversations about pastoring, but a lot of people don't understand pastoring and fathering too. After you leave here, you still got to go raise kids. You still got to go be the husband.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people
And-
struggle with that too.
And my kids, my wife kills me when I say my kids, because she's like, our kids, and then she'll say my kids.
I was about to say
and
they
have
feel
to
the
tell her
same way too.
our kids. But our kids are everything to us, man. They are everything to us, and we're when you see that Christmas card with them 8 people on it,
we're gonna put that on the podcast.
when you see that card, you know, I need for people to understand the enemy comes at my kids just like they come at theirs. The enemy comes after my family just like they come at theirs. And we are just extremely proud. You know, when you're the preacher's kid, you know, there's some really unrealistic expectations. And they kind of, you know, have some high expectations of themselves that sometimes works against them. But we're very proud of them, and yeah, we get to celebrate them a lot this year. This is a year of milestones for us: 30 years of marriage, 25 years of pastoral ministry, 145 years for the church, and 10 years since we dedicated this campus.
Wow. Wow.
And then
we gotta turn this into the club too. So we gotta turn up. We gotta turn up.
Turn up.
We gotta turn up.
Got nothing against turning up, by the way.
Yeah, I'm believing God for one, keeping these straight A's.
You got straight A's?
Yes, sir.
You're a better seminarian than I was.
Yes, sir. We got straight A's. We got straight A's right now. But I'm only taking one class a semester, so.
Hey.
Straight A's.
The tortoise beats the hare. Is what I'm told.
I'm excited about that.
We didn't do our shoe cam, but keep going. Tell us what you.
A healthy baby girl.
Healthy baby girl. He's got 3 sons. He's about to have 1 girl.
And that's it for me having
that's
children.
That's what we had. We had 3 boys and 1 girl for the longest time.
That's it for me having children. I'm done. No, but I'm believing God. I'm really excited. A lot of people don't say this about their churches, but I really feel like Springfield is about to hit a legendary stride this year. And I haven't even shared this with you, but I've been feeling so excited about where we're going as a church. I'm believing God for the youth ministry to double. I've been feeling that in my spirit lately. But overall, I'm excited that there are people like yourself that are willing to still share their wisdom. And I'm believing, God, that there will be more pastors that will see this and understand that there are people out there that need y'all. Like, I'm believing, God, that there will be relationships and true mentorship in 2024 because the church needs it.
We're a 145-year-old church. We got nothing but great expectations.
Yes, sir.
For the 2-year-old churches and the 4-year-old churches.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we have enough churches. And there's a lot of churches that are closing their doors. So we need strong churches in our community. Yes, and when I see churches doing strong things, I encourage it. I celebrate it. I'll call them and say, man, I saw what you did, and I thought that was awesome. And, you know, for those of us who are listening here, you know, we want to be a blessing, not just to our church, but to the church.
I was just about to say that. Y'all can come on by. Okay? A lot of people see the edifice and get so intimidated to ask questions. Because I've even had people ask me, and we gonna end it. I've even had people ask me, man, you think your pastor will talk to me, man? I was like, I don't know, but you can ask them. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say to that, but you know, y'all, we are a church here that just come on by. I ain't even gonna say too much. Just come on by, come hang out. Dr. Lee, you got anything you want to close us out with? Yeah,
whoever that was, I'll talk to him. I'd love to.
You watch this
you
podcast, so yeah.
You wearing Nikes and
Well, we just if we're gonna do shoe cam, we got to do it right. These are Travis Scott
oh, okay.
Jordan ones, low tops.
Yeah, I know Travis Scott.
We know.
Yeah.
What you got on, Doc?
These are
Those look kind of special.
some versus Versace. Versus Versace.
Versus Versace. See,
Yeah.
why he be
And
doing this?
Yeah. So
Why does he do this? I'm thinking this whole
we can't
time.
do a podcast until I get some new shoes. So
Oh, I got another suggestion. I talked to you about it before, but I
Okay.
think we should do it. And I bring a lot of stuff to you, y'all. I'm one of them people. He needs to record. Any of these recording? Oh, y'all, I'm one of them people. And Dr. Lee probably never admitted, but I asked Dr. Lee a million things because I just be wanting to know. I think we should go sneaker shopping one day. We pick a spot to go to. I mentioned this before, but I let it go. We pick a sneaker spot. Me, you, and Map, because Map a sneakerhead too.
I will go with y'all,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a brick and mortar guy. I'm an online shopper.
But
But I will go with you.
But Doc, we got to find you some sneakers. We got to, because what we need to do, we need to shoot it, and then you got to wear those sneakers on that Sunday.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
We're going to take you to a boutique spot,
Okay.
and there's going to be a whole bunch of nice sneakers up in there. Me, you, and Map. We're going to record it. We're going to bring Derek with us.
I got 4 kids in college or law school, so I'm always discount shopping.
Well, no, this place, we're not taking you to no Versace or nothing.
Okay,
We're taking
all
you
right.
to a regular
All right.
sneaker store.
All right.
It's just they got Jordans and stuff up in there. Me, you, and Map need to go and do that. How you feel about that?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
Okay.
do it. Let's
Okay.
remind people where they can go to church. Our teen church is Next Gen. We
Oh yeah,
have services on the 2nd Sunday and the 4th Sunday.
2nd and 4th. We have service here every Sunday at 10 a.m. Be here at 9:45 so you can get you a seat. All right. Children's church every Sunday at 10 a.m. February 23rd, I know we got other stuff on the calendar, but y'all, February 23rd, we have our Faith Fusion service, also the Next Gen anniversary. I'm so excited about this because the kids have been planning this thing. The kids are excited. I need everybody to be in that place. This is one of the few times where adults can come and hang out with Next Gen. So you need to be there. Dr. Lee gonna be there. You need to be there. All right. What else we got, Dr. Lee?
We got a lot.
Yeah. Yes, we got Springfield. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. You can find a place here. All right. So come on by Springfield. Dr. Lee be preaching all those good sermons. We be preaching sometime. Other than that, we good, y'all. Peace.
Peace. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.